Silence can feel like a void. It can feel like rejection, like abandonment, like you were never important in the first place. The mind is quick to create stories when there is no communication, and most of those stories aren't kind. We start to assume the worst. They don't care anymore. I must not have meant as much as I thought. Maybe I was just a phase. But let's take a step back. Let's strip away the emotions for a moment and look at the truth. In life, people process experiences differently. Some people need time alone to heal, to grow, or to understand what they're feeling. Some people withdraw not because they don't care, but because they don't know how to express what they're going through. Others pull back because they are overwhelmed, navigating their own struggles, or simply trying to find clarity in a chaotic world. Think about the times you've needed space. Maybe you were dealing with stress, uncertainty, or personal growth, and reaching out felt like too much. Maybe you cared, but you just didn't have the energy to explain yourself. Or maybe you just needed a moment to breathe without external noise. Now consider this. Why is it so hard to believe that someone else might be going through the same thing? We live in a world where constant communication is expected. We assume that if someone isn't texting, calling, or checking in, they must not care. But communication and care are not the same thing. A person's love, respect, or appreciation for you doesn't vanish simply because they aren't reaching out. Think about people you still value but haven't spoken to in a while. Does your silence mean you don't care? Or does it mean life has simply pulled you in a different direction for the time being? People get busy. They get distracted. They get lost in their own worlds. And that has nothing to do with your worth. There's a difference between being forgotten and being momentarily distant. Just because someone isn't actively speaking to you doesn't mean you don't cross their mind. It doesn't mean they don't think about the memories you shared, the impact you had, or the lessons they learned from you. It doesn't mean your presence in their life was insignificant. Some people are fighting battles they don't talk about. They may be dealing with anxiety, depression, family issues, career stress, or inner conflicts that keep them from reaching out. They may not even realize how their silence is affecting you because they're too deep in their own struggles. Others might be testing the waters of their own independence. They may need space to rediscover who they are outside of their connection with you. This isn't a reflection of how much you mattered. It's a part of their personal evolution, and in many cases that space is necessary for growth, both theirs and yours. Then there are those who simply assume you'll always be there, that they don't need to check in because the connection is strong enough to withstand time apart. Some of the best friendships and deepest relationships are the ones where you can go months or even years without speaking, yet when you reconnect, it feels like no time has passed. In the silence, many things are happening. Sometimes people are figuring themselves out. Sometimes they're processing emotions they don't know how to verbalize. Sometimes they're simply living life unaware of how their absence is affecting others. But none of these things automatically mean you've been erased from their heart or mind. If you find yourself waiting, overanalyzing, or questioning what someone else's silence means, take a breath. Instead of assuming the worst, consider a different perspective. Maybe their silence is not about you. Maybe it's about them. Maybe it's about what they're facing, what they need, or where they are on their journey. You have been significant to people who never told you. You have left an imprint on hearts that never admitted it. You have made a difference in ways you'll never fully understand. Not all connections need constant validation to remain real. Not all love needs to be spoken daily to be true. Some bonds exist beyond words, beyond time, beyond communication. And sometimes, just because someone isn't saying your name, doesn't mean they aren't thinking about it. Energy is one of the most powerful currencies you have. It's more valuable than money, more impactful than words, and more defining than circumstances. Where you direct your energy determines the quality of your life, your happiness, and your growth. But too often, we spend that energy on things outside of our control, especially when it comes to people who are distant, silent, or absent. When someone stops calling, stops messaging, or creates distance, it's natural to feel a shift in energy. You feel the absence. You notice the silence. Your mind starts to replay memories, trying to figure out where things changed. Maybe you ask yourself questions like, did I do something wrong? Were they pretending to care this whole time? Should I reach out, or will that make me look desperate? These questions create a cycle of mental exhaustion. You keep waiting, keep checking your phone, keep hoping for a message that never comes. And while you're doing that, something important is happening. You're giving your energy away. Energy is like a flame. If you keep feeding it with doubt, worry, and longing, it burns you out. But if you use it to fuel yourself, to strengthen yourself, to build something meaningful, it transforms you. The problem isn't that someone isn't calling. It's that you're making their silence more important than your own power. Think about how much time and effort you've spent thinking about someone who isn't actively showing up for you. Now imagine what would happen if you redirected that energy toward yourself. What if, instead of overanalyzing their absence, you focused on your personal growth? What if, instead of waiting for their message, you worked on something that lights you up? What if, instead of questioning your worth, you reminded yourself that you are the source of your own validation? The way you value yourself sets the standard for how others value you. If you spend your days feeling small because someone isn't giving you attention, you are teaching yourself to depend on external validation. But if you invest in yourself, in your happiness, in your future, you naturally attract people who respect and appreciate that energy. When you shift your focus inward, you start to notice something powerful. You are the creator of your own fulfillment. You don't need someone else's presence to feel whole. You don't need a text message to confirm your importance. You don't need anyone to remind you that you matter. Look around your life. What have you been neglecting while you've been waiting? What dreams have you put on hold? What passions have you ignored? Now is the time to take that energy and pour it back into yourself. Go to the gym, start that project, read that book, travel to that place you've always wanted to see. Surround yourself with people who are present, who reciprocate, who uplift you, and most importantly, learn to enjoy your own company. There's a difference between being lonely and being at peace with yourself. When you are constantly looking for someone else to fill the gaps in your life, you will always feel empty when they leave. But when you become whole on your own, you realize that nobody's absence can break you. Some people walk away, some people disappear, some people create distance, not because you are unworthy, but because they are on their own journey. Let them go. Let them figure it out. But never let their actions determine how you see yourself. You are not here to chase. You are not here to beg. You are not here to convince someone to remember you. You are here to grow, to evolve, to become the kind of person who is so fulfilled, so aligned, so focused on becoming the best version of themselves, that whether someone stays or leaves does not shake your foundation. Redirect your energy, reclaim your power, and remind yourself you are the prize. Life has a rhythm. It moves in seasons, cycles, and phases, and so do relationships. Some people come into your life like a summer breeze, warm, exciting, full of light. Others are like the winter, distant, cold, seemingly absent. But just like the seasons, connections shift, evolve, and sometimes disappear for a while before returning in a different form. When someone pulls away, stops calling, or goes silent, it's easy to panic. The mind starts racing, searching for reasons. What happened? Did I say something wrong? Did I mean anything at all? But what if silence isn't a punishment? What if distance isn't rejection? What if this pause, this shift, this temporary break is part of something bigger? Trusting the process means understanding that relationships, friendships, and connections don't always follow a straight line. Some relationships are meant to be constant, while others ebb and flow. Some people need space not because they don't care, but because they are on a journey that requires solitude. Think about your own life. Have you ever needed to step back from people, not because you didn't love them, but because you needed time to figure things out? Have you ever been so caught up in your personal struggles, your growth, or your own challenges that you didn't have the energy to be present for others? The same thing happens on the other side. Just because someone isn't showing up in your life right now doesn't mean they never will again. Some connections need space to breathe, to grow, to mature. Some people step away to work on themselves, and in doing so, they create the possibility of returning as a better version of who they were. Trusting the process means understanding that what is meant for you will never pass you by. It means knowing that if someone is meant to be in your life, they will find their way back in, the right time, in the right way. And if they don't, it's because their role in your story has already been fulfilled. This is not an easy concept to accept, especially when emotions are involved. When we care about someone, we want certainty. We want reassurance. We want to know that they will always be there. But life doesn't work that way. People have their own paths, their own lessons, their own timing. And sometimes that timing doesn't align with yours. When you trust the process, you release the need for control. You stop overanalyzing every silence. You stop questioning every absence. You stop forcing connections that aren't meant to be forced. Instead, you step back and allow life to unfold the way it's meant to. You focus on what you can control, your growth, your happiness, your journey. You shift from a mindset of waiting to a mindset of becoming. And when you do that, something incredible happens. You begin to attract people who are aligned with your energy. You find peace in uncertainty. You realize that no amount of chasing, worrying, or overthinking will change what is meant to be. Trusting the process means believing that whatever happens, whether someone returns or not, you will be okay. It means knowing that distance is not always a loss and silence is not always a goodbye. It means having faith that the right people will always find their way back and the wrong ones will fade away for a reason. There is freedom in surrendering to the flow of life. There is peace in understanding that you don't have to control everything. There is power in knowing that what is truly meant for you will always find its way, in its own time, in its own way. There's a shift that happens when you stop chasing, stop waiting, and stop depending on someone else's presence to feel whole. When you take all of that energy you've been pouring into, wondering, overanalyzing, and hoping, and instead direct it back into yourself, you become magnetic. Magnetism isn't about being physically attractive, popular, or socially dominant. It's about energy. It's about presence. It's about walking into a room and carrying an unshakable aura of confidence, self-worth, and purpose. And the moment you shift your focus from seeking validation to becoming someone of undeniable value, everything changes. So how do you become irresistibly magnetic? 1, own your presence. People are drawn to those who own who they are, flaws, strengths, quirks, and all. When you are comfortable in your own skin, you exude a rare kind of confidence that naturally attracts others. This doesn't mean you have to be loud or overly charismatic. It means you are so secure in yourself that your energy speaks for you before you even say a word. Owning your presence means walking with purpose. It means looking people in the eye when you speak. It means standing tall, taking up space, and not apologizing for existing. People remember those who move with certainty, even in the face of uncertainty. 2, shift your focus from external to internal. One of the biggest reasons people lose their magnetic energy is because they focus too much on them, the person who isn't calling, the person who hasn't responded, the person who seems to have moved on. The more you fixate on someone else, the more you shrink. Your energy becomes scattered, desperate, and needy. But when you shift that focus inward, when you prioritize you, everything shifts. Instead of asking, why aren't they thinking about me? You ask, how can I improve myself today? Instead of wondering, what are they doing? You think, what am I building? Instead of how do I get their attention? You say, how do I make myself so valuable that my presence is impossible to ignore? 3, cultivate passion and purpose. Nothing is more magnetic than a person who is deeply passionate about their life. People are naturally drawn to those who have a fire in their soul, those who are chasing something bigger than attention, validation, or relationships. What excites you, what drives you, what lights you up, when you find something that fuels you, whether it's fitness, art, business, travel, personal growth, you radiate a kind of energy that is contagious. And the more focused you become on building a life that excites you, the less you care about who is or isn't showing up for you. 4, elevate your standards. Magnetic people do not settle. They do not beg for love, friendship, or attention. They do not chase people who are inconsistent, half-hearted, or unsure. They do not shrink themselves to fit into someone else's world. When you elevate your standards, you send a powerful message not just to others, but to yourself. You declare that you are someone of high value, someone who knows their worth, someone who refuses to entertain anything less than genuine respect and reciprocity. And here's the paradox. When you stop lowering your standards to accommodate people who don't deserve you, you start attracting people who do. 5, master the art of detachment. Detachment doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop clinging. It means you release the need for constant reassurance. It means you understand that the right people will stay and the wrong ones will leave. And both are okay. When you are detached, you don't beg, you don't chase, you don't force, you flow, you trust, you allow. And in doing so, you become someone that people can't help but be drawn to. Because there is nothing more attractive than someone who wants you but doesn't need you. 6, be unapologetically authentic. Most people spend their lives trying to fit in. They filter themselves. They dilute their opinions. They mold themselves into what they think others want. And in doing so, they lose their magic. But the ones who stand out, they don't seek approval. They don't shapeshift to please people. They don't silence their voices out of fear of judgment. They are real, they are raw, they are unapologetically themselves. And that kind of authenticity is intoxicating, it's refreshing, it's rare. 7, radiate an abundance mindset. Desperation repels. Abundance attracts. When you move through life with an abundant mindset, you operate from a place of knowing that there is no shortage of love, opportunity, or connection. You don't grip onto people out of fear of losing them because you trust that what is meant for you will always find you. An abundant mindset means you don't waste energy on those who don't see your value because you know there are countless people who will. It means you don't chase people who leave because you trust that better connections are always on their way. It means you don't settle for crumbs because you know you deserve the whole feast. That kind of energy, it's magnetic, it's irresistible. It makes people want to be around you, want to know you, want to be part of your world. Age, live fully, so fully that people feel your absence. When you stop waiting, when you stop looking back, when you stop hoping someone remembers you, something powerful happens. You start living, you start thriving, you start becoming someone whose life is so full, so vibrant, so purposeful that your absence is felt. And that is the secret. You don't make people remember you by chasing them. You don't make people miss you by waiting for them. You make people feel your absence by becoming someone they cannot forget.